Good. Yourself?
Good, good. I was just about to confirm with him, so we're holding.
I don't want to hold off. I have to get out of here.
Can't recognize people.
Yeah, that is. Yes, it is.
Hello, and welcome to Unlimited Conferencing. Please enter your PIN, followed by the pound sign. Thank you. After the tone, please state your name, followed by the pound sign.
Joe.
Thank you. The conference will be allowed to continue after you disconnect. You are the first participant to join the conference. Please stand by.
How did it go this morning? Oh. Were attachments? They all came out. I wonder why it did that. That's a lot of... Yeah, I'll let her know. That's strange. She could. Yeah. I would assume she did, yeah. All set? Etta? I think we're about ready. We'll wait another minute here. Hi, Dick. How are you? Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, amen. Like housekeeping, maintenance, grounds, nursing. Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, amen. Amen. We're going to go ahead and get started. Can everyone hear me okay? I'll take the mask off. I know it's easier sometimes to hear as well as to read lips. So we're going to go ahead and get started. It's about 1 o'clock, and we'd like to start with prayer as always. Turn it over to our chaplain, Etta, to lead us in prayer.
Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, on such a wonderful occasion, we come together in your name. God, we thank you for the community of Florida Presbyterian homes that you've blessed us with. We thank you for each and every resident and their families. We thank you for each and every staff member and their family. And we thank you for the extended community who make up a part of this community. Now, God, continue to bless us in our deliberations today. Be with us in all of our conversations. Let everything that we do always bring you glory and honor to your name. Continue to embrace our residents as we go through this pandemic. We continue to navigate our way through, knowing that you will lead us through, you guide us, protect us, you heal us, you restore us, and most of all, you renew us. Thank you for the love of your Son who gave his life for us, that we might have life. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Etta. Thank you very much. Just a quick review of the agenda. We have a hard stop at 2:15 today. This is Kim Roberts, our Director of Human Resources. This is Kim's last day. She has retired, and this officially we're going to be recognizing and celebrating Kim in the dining room immediately after this program. So her family will be here with us. So it'll be a nice occasion to recognize Kim for all that she's meant to our residents and to our staff for the many years she worked here. So those of you who know Kim, you know that her parents once worked here, and she's had siblings that worked here. Her son, Kyle, has helped out here on occasion when we needed to do a child daycare program when COVID first started. Kyle and my daughter facilitated the temporary daycare program until we can make sure that all of our staff's employees were placed and were able to get care that they needed off campus. So Kim has been very special to so many of you as residents and so many to us as staff as well. So I hope you'll be able to come over and join us for that celebration. Just in terms of running through the agenda, the first item that we're going to cover is security initiatives, and we have invited Angie from the Lakeland Police Department to come up and talk about two initiatives, or an initiative that the city has, the Neighborhood Watch program. When we did the bids, when Rick and I did the bids for the camera, adding new camera systems throughout the campus, we invited Cindy Sharp and Angie to come over and walk the campus with us and look at where we were placing cameras, and they started to identify where we needed additional signage, where we needed additional lighting, as well as reviewing the camera systems. So we really appreciated having both Angie and Cindy helping us and looking at these options. And so before I update you on those options, in the discussion, Angie and Cindy had said, you know, there used to be a neighborhood watch group of residents at Florida Presbyterian Homes. And we looked around and we saw even on some of the houses, there's still some neighborhood watch stickers. And we talked about it and said, maybe it's time once again to present the Neighborhood Watch program to the residents to get an idea of how many of you would be interested in participating in the Neighborhood Watch program once again. We are fortunate that we have not had any major situations or scenarios in terms of safety on the campus. There was a time where a resident did have a television taken many years ago, that somebody broke in and took a TV set. We have had a situation where a resident's window was shimmied, and that was about a year ago. So there are things that happen, but historically, we're in a pretty safe area. But instead of just kind of sitting on that, we wanted to make sure that we looked at all of our cameras, looked at all of our protocols, and that's why we met with Angie and Cindy, just to see if we were missing anything. And they identified the Neighborhood Watch program. So we're going to focus on that. Initially, we're going to invite Angie to come up and speak to the Neighborhood Watch program. And then what we'll do is we'll send out a notice to all the residents in independent living and residential living so we can track to see who's interested in participating in Neighborhood Watch. So that'll probably come out next week. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Angie, and I would suggest you use this mic. Let's see. Yeah, so it's harder for them without. Thanks, Angie.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me good? Okay. Well, like Mr. Joe mentioned, my name is Angie Ellis. I've been with LPD for 8 years, and I am a Florida crime prevention practitioner. And the Neighborhood Watch program, along with a new program that will be launching soon called the Dog Walker Watch program. If you can say that really quickly, you get a prize, Dog Walker Watch program. So what is Neighborhood Watch? Neighborhood Watch is neighbors looking out for neighbors. Raise your hand if you're a night owl. Some of you stay up late, and then raise your hand if you're an early bird. So we know that crimes happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Vehicle burglaries, I've seen a few more lately in the southwest area where you're located. And we tend to see bicycles stolen, vehicle burglaries committed. It's not just overnight. It could be at 4 in the morning. It could be at 10 o'clock in the morning. So neighborhood watch is you being a little extra vigilant, looking out your window between your blinds. You don't necessarily have to walk the neighborhood, but if you have a dog and you walk them often, be aware of your surroundings. See what is out of place. Maybe there's someone walking by, maybe there's someone on a bicycle, or someone in a vehicle driving by slowly at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., whenever it is that you tend to maybe look outside or walk your dog. Follow me so far? So if somebody is driving by slowly, some of you might be looking out your window and thinking, you know, I think I heard something. Some people, I'm not gonna bother looking. But those of you that are interested in Neighborhood Watch, that's exactly what it is. You hear something, you see something, and then you say something. Not just to your neighbors, but perhaps maybe you see someone looking in car windows. Why would somebody be looking in car windows that doesn't live in your neighborhood or on your street? So what would you do then? You would call the non-emergency number. I have a little pamphlet that I've laid on top of the piano. There's actually 4 things on the piano that you can choose from to take, or you can take all of them. And this is called, It's All Right to Be a Nosy Neighbor. Right? Nosy neighbors, if it wasn't for a nosy neighbor where my parents lived, I would have never known that my father was laying in a bed of red ants for an hour. But that nosy neighbor probably saved his life, right, from anaphylactic shock or whatnot. So I'd rather have a nosy neighbor that's looking out for you or me than someone that's just, I'm gonna look at my rose bushes today and not notice anything else in and around there. So neighborhood watch there again is being vigilant, being aware of your surroundings, seeing what doesn't belong or is not typically there. Looking in a car window, is it necessarily a crime? You know, they're not breaking into the car, they're not smashing the window, but it's suspicious activity. If it's not their car, then why are they having their hands pressed against the glass looking inside? That is motive for you to call the Lakeland Police Department, and the non-emergency number is located on the back of this pamphlet that you can receive later. That number is 863-834-6966. But let's say they're looking in the window, you're on the phone with the dispatcher, the non-emergency dispatcher, and now they're breaking into it. Do you have to hang up and call 911? The 911 operator is sitting right across from the non-emergency operator. So if you get it mixed up, it's okay. It has happened, we understand. They will just connect it to the person across from them, and we will collect that information. But one thing you need to remember is when you call about a suspicious person, or let's say a crime that's actually in progress, maybe you hear the smashing of a window and you see someone getting into a car, we need as good of a detailed explanation or description of that person that you're observing. So our dispatcher will ask you many, many questions. They're going to ask you questions because they have to paint the picture for the officer that is going to be responding. So I know it could be a little bit intimidating sometimes because I have called, and sometimes you're surprised at the amount of questions. What vehicle are they driving? Are they on a bicycle? Do they have a ball cap? Do they have a hat? Are they bald? Are they tall? Are they short? So I think you get the picture. When you look inside this pamphlet, on the first page, it gives you some of the questions that they'll be asking you. So you can start training your mind, okay, if this ever happens and I have to call the non-emergency number or 911 to give a description, I want to be ready. I want to be ready and be familiar with the questions that he or she may be asking. Do they have dark hair? Do they have light hair? At night, it's hard for me to see if it's a dark red vehicle or is it light red, but just, stick to the primary colors. It looks like it's red. Could be maroon, wine colored. Basic, descriptions of what you're seeing. Is it a pickup truck? Does it have 2 doors or 4 doors? Is it a van? Is it a white van and maybe you kind of see a sticker on the side of it? You don't have to give the exact description of the sticker you see, but if an officer is coming down the road and he sees a van with some type of sticker on the right side of it, that's a really good description that he can then stop that vehicle and ask them some questions. They do what's called a field interview. Does that make sense so far? So neighborhood watch, we don't want you to run out into the street or follow them on your golf cart or run after them to try to get the tag number. It is not worth you putting your life on the line. We're not asking you to do that. We are just simply asking you to be our eyes and ears, because the Lakeland Police Department, the officers can't be everywhere all the time, and neither can security. Security here is wonderful, but there again, it's a lot of ground to cover. So if you become familiar with who's on your street, who lives there, what vehicles they drive, then you know much more than the officer that's coming out. Make sense? Any questions about Neighborhood Watch? This is just a little introduction to it. And like he said, if you are interested and want to come to a more in-depth explanation of it, but it's really simple. It's not, you don't need to meet every week. You can meet quarterly, and we can just go over different tips. But there again, the dog walker watch program is also, it'll be coming up hopefully in August. And it's neat because it is a little program that you and your dog are, we're walk through and we talk to you about it, and the little dog gets a little, like a little bandana. And so he's kind of your little partner. But you don't have to participate in that. You might just want to participate in Neighborhood Watch, which there again is just neighbors looking out for neighbors, observing and reporting to us. Yes, sir.
Our residence backs up to Lakeside Avenue and then the park, and there's a lot of traffic, walkers, joggers, different groups, individuals, and all types of people, all kinds of colors and whatnot. And we watch, but as long as there are people just walking through, I'm only concerned that maybe someone may overreact and profile someone that doesn't look like them or like us.
Right, we want to stick to,
We want to distinguish,
yes.
but there is a lot, that's probably the most largest amount of traffic on the edge of the campus that occurs. I think we all are aware of that. Specifically us, we can look out our back window and it's a constant movement of people.
Right.
Never had any incidents. I'm just saying that's part of the reality of our environment.
Yes, people walk through, they'll bike through. We're looking more for suspicious activity. Like I said, if it's 2 a.m. or even 10 a.m. and somebody's looking inside vehicles, that wouldn't be profiling. They're looking in a vehicle, more than likely, that doesn't belong to them. Does that make sense? So that there in itself is suspicious. If you have solicitors coming to your door, they're supposed to have a license, but here, you have a no trespassing, no solicitation, am I correct?
Right.
So they shouldn't be here anyway. I would believe that security would probably be on that, maybe a little quicker than us. However, we could be responding too. So I don't know what policy you have in place with solicitors, because I know sometimes solicitors have a license even if they're not supposed to be in here, but then there are some people that are trying to take advantage of others. Here, let me coat your driveway. They're not licensed or insured, but they happen to be 2 doors down because that person happened to hire them. Do you follow? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and they'll say, oh, Mr. Smith, 2 doors down, let me do his. How about if you let me do yours? You got to do your due diligence, and we have responded to calls like that as well. But if somebody's driving by at night at 2 a.m. or 5 in the morning and they're going by slowly and they've turned off their headlights, that's not profiling. That's out of the ordinary and suspicious. Make sense? Well, I just want to thank you all for having me. I know I'm limited with time. Please make sure you pick up this pamphlet. We also have the Neighborhood Insider, and we also have crime prevention tips at home for seniors. There's tons of information here, and I also have a lens cleaner. So if you'd like to pick up a lens cleaner, just stop by. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'll get it, Angie. That's all right. I got it, that's all right. That's all right. Thank you. Sure. With stickers.
Now, there's two different stickers. We do have neighborhood watch stickers, so if you become part of that, there's also a sign, or maybe we give you the first sign free that goes somewhere in your neighborhood. Each additional sign is, I think, $22. Now, if you want a sticker for your window, we have some of those available if you join the Neighborhood Watch program. There's also a different program called the LEAP program, and I believe that management is still looking into that program. So I'm not sure which sticker you're referring to. But yes, if you're part of Neighborhood Watch, you would get one of those. Yes, ma'am. That would be through management.
Yeah, that's us. Yeah, yeah. So I can speak to that. Thanks,
Thank you so
Angie.
much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you. And give our best to Cindy as well, please. Thank you. So in terms of the no solicitation, just to understand, the whole campus is a no solicitation zone. So you should not have anybody coming up and knocking on your door trying to sell you something. So in a situation, Rick?
The way that we find out there's no solicitation from the residents, they call us first.
Yeah.
Because the campus is so large, most of the time it's on Talley Street or Lakeside Court or up on Highland Street.
Yeah.
They'll get solicited and then they'll immediately call maintenance or security and then we try to intercept them and then tell them this is private property.
So if everybody can, I want to reiterate what Rick just said, because what often happens is he's sharing is it's usually on Tally, which is kind of in the middle of the neighborhood there, and they could be going door to door there, or on a Highland, where they just keep going down the block and assume that everybody, lives in Dixieland and it's open for them to do. But call our maintenance and security if that should happen. There's no need to answer the door. There's no need to get into a conversation. If somebody doesn't have a name badge, doesn't say my name and I'm with Florida Presbyterian Homes, they shouldn't be knocking on your door. So the best thing to do is to call maintenance. If it's off hours and security is here, to call the security number. If you see people doing something suspicious, as Angie was saying, you see somebody late at night that is just kind of sitting on the benches out by the Memorial Garden, and it's not someone that you recognize as a resident. It's somebody looking into windows of houses, or just something that's odd and something wrong there. You can call security, or you can call the non-emergency number. And if you're on the watch program, the concept is that you would get the sticker for your window, so people would know that you're one of the people who is on the watch program and is looking to check to see if people are doing things they shouldn't be doing and reporting that to the non-emergency police. So we wanted to share that with you, and then we'll send out a follow-up mailer to ask you, especially the folks that are in the houses, if you are interested in going through the Neighborhood Watch program. And Angie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Neighborhood Watch program, if we get people that say, I'm interested, I've signed up, would you come back out here and do a more detailed, okay, so Angie would come back out, register you, do a more detailed program to get you registered into the Neighborhood Watch program. So the other things that we talked about that are on the agenda, Angie also brought up LEAP. So I just want to kind of close the loop on LEAP. So with LEAP, what it's for is if you register with the police all of your emergency contact information, they will have a sticker for you so the police know that you're registered in the LEAP program. Why we're kind of looking at that and put that on hold is because normally the police, if it's an emergency here on the campus, they're contacting us because we already have all that information that you have provided to us, your emergency contacts. And we ask you guys on a regular basis, usually annually through the Scoop or through the Now Read This, we ask you to update your emergency contact information. Because our concern with the LEAP program is those things change, but people aren't updating that. We're here, we are updating that when we get that information from you. So for the police, it's easier for them to make one call to us and get the contact information to be able to follow up with the people you would want them to follow up with than having the LEAP program where they're going house to house and calling. So that's what we came up with in talking with our team and with Rick and looking at it. The cameras, let's go back to the cameras. So you may recall there were 3 potted plants that were taken from 2 residents in the northeast corner of the campus in the neighborhoods. We had one resident that had 2 men show up at her door and ask for her. And she told them, I'm going to call the police, and they bolted. We had a window up on that corner as well that was shimmied, and you could see it bent, the screen. So the person obviously tried to get in. So most of the focus of our attention has been in that area. We've got 2 cameras on a pole that is right off of, is it Waverly there? Off of Waverly. The cameras are outdated. So we looked at what can we pick up on those cameras, and at night, you're not picking up a whole lot. So we went through a process in looking at all of the areas that have existing cameras and reviewed where we need to replace those, as well as looking at where we can add additional cameras. So that's what we went through. We had 2 bids. One was about $17,000, one was about $18,000. We went with the higher bid because we felt that in the review we got, that was the better option. That there are better cameras, better systems, replacing new cameras to replace some of the old ones, and also adding new cameras. So we're looking at, I've signed the contract, so it's been ordered. Now we're just waiting to get the cameras in. We are, as part of that, looking at cameras in the B building. I won't share where, because you'll see them eventually, but we don't want everybody looking and saying, well, I know where that camera is, I know where that camera is, and it gets out. But we are looking at 2 cameras in the B exterior. So the other thing that came up, and Rick, please come up if I miss anything, please correct me, okay? The other thing we looked at, and we did order, was the gate at Palmetto. So for those of you who are on the north side of the campus there, you know that Palmetto dead ends right where the workshop is, and it kind of forces people to come through our neighborhood. So the gate has been ordered. We worked with the fire department and the police. It'll be a system, the time that we're looking at is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. where the gate would be down, and you would have to click to buzz to come through that gate. Thanks, Angie. From 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. is the time frame where you would have to use a clicker that we would provide to get through that gate. Now, most of the residents are not going to use that at night. They're going to come through the other way because they know that that gate is closed. So Rick, please correct me on any detail.
Actually, the gate from 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. will be open.
Oh, I'm sorry.
7 a.m. to 7 p.m. will be open. And what we're going to do, when the gate is closed after 7 p.m., they will be able to exit. There's going to be a loop in the asphalt. So when the car drives over the loop, the gate will open. Coming back in, it will stay down. You'd have to go around through Drain Park and then enter through Terrace Gardens or Waverly that way. There will be no clicker for the cars. It's going to be in the asphalt only. It's going to be for exit. Now, when the fire department, if they have to come in, or the police, there's going to be Knox boxes. And Knox boxes is where it's going to hold the key to the gate. And we have them on all our buildings also. This is for emergency entrance only for the fire department or the police department. So that's why we're pulling permits going through the city of Lakeland, so they're fully aware of what's going on, so they know how to enter or exit our campus.
Thank you. Thanks for correcting me. So just to reiterate, so everybody's clear, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. the gate is open.
Correct.
Okay. There are no clickers. After 7 p.m., if you exit, there's a loop and it will open the gate to exit. But if you come back, you have to come through Waverly.
Waverly, yes, correct.
Questions, comments? Bruce, did you have a question?
What is the policy as far as the maintenance gate? When is that normally open and closed?
You know, that's a really hard.
Restate the question.
Well, the statement is the maintenance gate down the maintenance shop. When is that open or closed? That varies on all shifts because we have either maintenance might be down there servicing the golf carts, or they might be doing work orders or building something down the maintenance shop. So it does vary. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it really, I mean, realistically, I can't tell you because they might be doing projects down there. And so if you see the gate open, but we do tell our maintenance staff, if you're not down there working, make sure the gate is closed. And so we tell them that all the time. And I get text messages or emails from residents, the gate's open, and I'll call them up to say, where are you at? So, I mean, it doesn't hurt. You could call me or text me or shoot me an email because I check my phone all weekend long.
Since we opened the parking lot over behind the sixplex,
Yes.
okay, as they're coming out of there, the employees are coming out of there, of course, the traffic has increased coming up Tally, but they're flying.
Okay.
A lot of them, and know now they're employees because they see the same cars. But if there's some way of getting that message to them, I mean, we've got people walking their dogs, we've got
Mhm.
our street people that walk. But that speed doesn't need to be what they're doing. Once they cross over lakes, they don't need to be.
Right.
No, that's fine. And you can even shoot us an email of what color the car is or whatever, and we can address it that way also.
So good. I want to repeat the statement that Judy shared. Where the grass parking lot is right behind the sixplex, it's primarily employees who are parking there. A lot of times she's saying people are exiting fast and shooting right up Tally, exceeding the speed limit. So a couple of things on that. This year we implemented the tag for employee cars. Prior to that, we didn't have a tag on all the employee cars, so we can identify whose car a little easier, with the tag. But if you see some car that yeah, that car is always moving through here quickly, let myself, let Rick know, and that way we can go back and trace whose car is that and let that employee know that that's not acceptable. We had a situation on Lakeside where it was an agency staff person, and we were able to, because the neighbor across the street took a picture and sent it to Rick and I, so we were able to work with Bessie and identify whose car that was, and we met with that person. So that's I'm glad you brought that up. Mr. Rankin?
What about an ID tag for all our cars? Has that been used in the district? I noticed a neighbor of mine has one, but maybe it's dated, I don't know.
We do on new resident orientation in the pamphlet when Jono comes around. There should have been a tag in there for your car. Okay.
So
Okay.
We're seeing a couple of residents that are saying they didn't get one.
Okay. What I can do, when Dave is going around doing our preventive maintenance, I'll have him ask the residents, and because what we do is we stick it in the resident profile. And so we know the make of the car and who it belongs to. So yeah, so we can, I'll have Dave go around and When he's cleaning out the dryer vents, we can ask the residents then.
Just to reiterate for the folks who are watching to make sure everybody's heard, the question was, do the residents also have ID tags, Florida Presbyterian Home ID tags? And historically, they were provided as part of the new resident orientation, but as Dave is going around and doing his maintenance, he will check to ask you, do you have that, do you need it? And then if you don't have it and you need it, we'll get it for you. Okay. That's it for the safety security initiatives. And obviously, I think most of you probably got it already, the hurricane announcement. June 1st is a golden day that it becomes officially the hurricane season. We saw that there is a storm front coming in from the Yucatan. It doesn't look like at this point it's going to have an impact here other than rain. So we assume and hope that that will be the case. For some of you who've been here a while, you've heard the story. I won't go too long. When I was a little kid, we were vacationing I think we were in Daytona, and Camille was announced, and we shot up to Savannah, and we said, okay, we'll miss it. We're going to avoid Camille. It shot right up towards Savannah. We said, okay, we're going to go stay with my aunt and uncle in Mobile, Alabama. And we shot over to Mobile, Alabama, and we slept through Camille, on the floors in the hallways where there were no windows. And so these things, we track with the Weather Service, the National Weather Service, through our national weather radios that we have, and we are constantly watching to see. This is the second letter that we sent out just to kind of give people an update on where things are at. Right now, we're in that time period through June 10th, where it's the disaster preparedness tax holiday. So if there's things like batteries and things that you need, now would be the time to acquire that. If you're independent living, residential living residents, that's why we sent it out. So we're going to be cautious and diligent as we're in this season now. And for those of you, as it approaches to a warning, as it moves from a watch to a warning, if you are in a house and you're alone and you're concerned about that, in as much advance notice as you can, once a warning's been announced, contact myself or Rick and let us know, and we'll, before we have a hurricane on site, make any accommodations in an empty apartment or anywhere that we can accommodate you safely for the night as it's striking. So that information, we want to make sure if you have questions, from now on when we do these town hall meetings through the hurricane season, we're always going to have on the agenda hurricane questions. And if you don't have any, that's fine. But if you do, we want to make sure we know what your concerns are and that we're able to address them. Okay. So I'm going to ask Tasha to come up. Tasha is our Associate Executive Director, and Tasha is going to walk us through life enrichment and assisted living. She's going to be followed by Etta, and then Siobhan will talk about Porter McGrath, and then we'll close with the Executive Director update, and if time allows, we'll have questions.
You guys hear me in the back? Do I need to go? Okay, I don't know if this is the one you have to get real close to. Life enrichment. So we've got some really great stuff coming up in June. Of course, we know Father's Day is coming up. We will be acknowledging Father's Day Friday the 17th, and there has been a newsletter that has gone out, so you'll continue to see this, but I'm just giving you a verbal. So Friday the 17th at 11:30 a.m. in Drain Park, we're doing Father's Day beers and brats. So we will also have another location in the Helen Berry Garden for those that don't want to go that far. So we'll have both locations available. We've also got our longest day bake sale on the 21st in the sunroom. So you can drop stuff off the day before on the 20th or bring them the day of to sell. So the longest day is a fundraiser for the Alzheimer's Association. Speaking of Alzheimer's Association, I just want to give you guys reminders on our support group. So currently, you guys know about the one on the fourth Wednesday that's 10 a.m. in MacArthur. But you guys have requested another one. So on the second Tuesday of the month at 9:30 in the chapel, we will have kind of a more educational forum. It will be a caregiver support group. It's only going to be for our residents, families, and friends here. So that will be really good. Look forward to scheduling those speakers and getting some nice information to you guys. For activity assistance, of course, you guys all probably know Samantha. Samantha is very fortunate to have a full team right now. So that team consists of Laura Newcomer and Miss Avery, who was a CNA on the first floor in the assisted living. She has been promoted. So we are very excited for her. My assisted living update, our occupancy, we are at 43 residents. We did have very good news. Yesterday, everyone tested negative for COVID. So that's very exciting. Now remember, we need 2 clear weeks. So get excited, but hold it a little bit. Yeah, that's it. Do you guys have any questions for me? My office is on the 3rd floor of the assisted living. If you guys ever wanted to come up and see me, I always have chocolate and other healthy snacks, but you know, people come for the chocolate. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any plans to commence the bus trips again?
So the question was, are there any plans to commence the bus trips again? There are. Now that we are fully staffed, we just need to get our girls trained, and then we can really start looking at the calendar to bolster these activities that we'd like to see. So the answer is yes. Where would you like to go on the bus trips?
Greece.
Can't go to Greece on a bus trip. Okay. Yep, okay. So we'll see where you guys feel like going then. Oh, we want to go eat.
Oh.
All right.
That's always good.
That's all, okay.
Go see the giraffes.
The giraffe, where do you see the giraffes?
Of all the best places. Okay. How
Oh, the
fun.
giraffe ranch, okay, well.
Pete.
Oh, Dade City, yeah, I've been over there. Oh, that's a good one. I saw tigers there, though. All right, got
Hi.
any assisted living questions? Did you have one back there? Just waving?
There's a wildlife park on the northeast side of Lakewood that has African animals. That may be where you see the giraffes. We went there too.
In Lakeland? Okay, I'm writing that down, thank you. All right, so we want to eat and we want to see some animals. Is that what okay. That sounds good to me. All right. Oh, who does? Oh, there you go. Hi.
Resources. Charlie's one-tank trips that he has on Fox News.
On the news, yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
one-tank trips.
He had one yesterday, Pickford Sundries in Jackson.
Oh, one tank. So if you guys come across some of these one-tank trips that you think might be fun, feel free to send it my way or to Samantha, because we're open. We're open to doing some fun stuff.
And
Yes, oh my gosh. So Miss Jones just said Bonnet Springs. I'm getting the newsletters. I know Joe and I are friends of Bonnet Springs. We are very excited. I believe a few months ago you guys had Heidi from Parks and Rec come out and talk about it. So if you guys want her to come back out for another update when it gets closer, we can arrange that. Heidi is so wonderful, and I'd like to know more about what there is to do, eat, and see. Yes, ma'am.
I would suggest find somebody else from Bonnet Springs who is more of a, has more of talking, is more experienced as a speaker.
Okay. So the comment was to get somebody from Bonnet Springs that has more of a presence and used to giving more presentations and speaking. Noted. All right, guys, anything else? Thank you.
For spiritual life, really the focus and the most recent thing that's coming up is this Sunday at 3:30 here in the chapel. We are doing a time of prayer for the community. I have invited residents to share prayers with me. A few have dropped some off to the office and others with different ideas, but as a community, we want to come together and just lift up the concerns of our community, of our city, of our state, of our nation, and of our world. We're living in difficult times, those of you that are watching the news, and if the church doesn't pray, we're going to be in trouble. Okay, my Baptist folks are saying amen. If the church doesn't pray, we're going to be in trouble. And so, thank you. We are a very interactive crew. Remember, it's an ecumenical service, so it's okay for you to say amen or wave your hand. But no, just on a serious note, though, we do need to pray for our nation. I know we started some days of prayer a couple months ago, especially with the tragedies we're seeing in Ukraine that are continuing. I have a classmate who's actually on the ground working with them. He's set up an orphanage there for those who are leaving Ukraine and children that have been abandoned. But there's so many different concerns, and I know for our generation, we carry a lot of those concerns on our shoulders, but there are some shoulders that are broader than ours, and those are the shoulders we want to look to, and that is the shoulders of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who told us to bring our burdens to him. Now, let me just say this for the prayers. I am not going to open it up where it gets to be a kind of free-for-all. I would like it to be structured, and so I'm going to lead us in those prayers. But if you would like to share a prayer or you have some prayer point or something written that you want to share with me in advance of that time, you're more than willing to lead a prayer. But I want to just make sure that we're all praying on one accord and we're not causing discord in our prayers. Sometimes our prayers can kind of center on our own needs, and this is for the needs of the greater community. So please come over and just share in that time with us here in the chapel. Also, for the summer months, I'm going to be doing some articles on pre-planning. You do know we're in a season where this seems to be the time of year around spring. We have a few more deaths on campus than what is our normal average. What I would ask residents to do is if you would begin talking about your pre-planning with your family, and if there are arrangements that need to be shared with me, that you would do that in advance. It's so much, I won't say easier because it's not quite the word I want, but it's a better transition when I have an idea of what your favorite song, your favorite hymns, your favorite scriptures, how you want your service to go. Actually, I should have done an article with Mabel Wright, because she gave me word for word what her service was supposed to be, and I actually just read what she told me to read, and at the end she told me to say, "That's it, I'm done," and that's what I had to say. That's it, I'm done. But I just need topics. If you've done pre-planning with a funeral service or a funeral home, that would be great for me to have on file so that we're not scrambling in case of an emergency or something tragic that happens. It just makes it easier on your family as well if they know what your plans are. So I know it's a subject that we don't like to talk about, but in my position, it's one I need to talk about, and I would rather you be prepared than we come to a point where your family doesn't know what your wishes are, and I definitely want to honor your wishes. So if it's something as simple as saying, well, Etta, I have pre-planned cremation service, here's who I've contacted, I can put that in my file, I have a folder for that. Or if it's more detail where I had somebody, and I won't call their name, somebody booked me for 20 years from now today to do their service. So whatever it is on there that you need from me, if you would do that. So June, July, and August, you'll see just some pointers on pre-planning. I met with someone from one of our local funeral homes to give us ideas of kind of things to have in place and where to have those things in place. Florida can be a tricky state when it comes to wills and probate and all of that, because we don't have a survivor children's initiative here in Florida. It's spouse to spouse, and some people don't know that. They think that when they die, their children will automatically inherit their things. That's not true in Florida, and many of you are not from Florida. We do have elder attorneys in downtown Lakeland that can help you with that. I am not an elder attorney. However, I've had enough experience here in the last 2 years to kind of point us in a direction. So if you want to have an appointment with me, feel free to do that. You want to drop off some notes for me, feel free to do that. But you'll see a couple suggestions in the Hunter Herald just to kind of guide us in that direction as we move in our lives as part of that season. Any questions for me? Yes.
Is there a form for them? Is there some kind of guideline?
Actually, I tried to get some of our funeral directors to give me a form, and they will not because they want you to come to them. And you know me, as they were talking, I was making notes. So there are going to be some things that I kind of saw on their forms that I'll do. They were happy to give me pricing, but they didn't want to give me a list of kind of things to do. So right, and I thought about doing a information session where I invite a few of them out, but many of them are really focused on your business and in a time of grief, adding prices to some things you may or may not need, and I don't want to subject you to that. So I will have some things that I add from their sheet and list in there. I do know there are some funeral directors who will have that conversation with you free of charge. Those are some of your more established ones here in Lakeland. Again, I can't really give you names because I don't want to try to steer you in a certain direction, but that's a great question. Any other questions for me? All right, thank you so much. Thank you. Kathy, were you gonna? Oh, okay, when I see hands move, you know, I stop. Okay, thank you so much.
Before you leave that, I just want to touch. Would it be helpful if we had an attorney, an elder law attorney that specialized in wills and trusts, just do a generic presentation on the idiosyncrasies of Florida, and just to have that, would some of you find that of interest? I'm getting some. Would it? Okay. So most folks have, but okay. Okay, because we can, you know, there's in Rotary, there's a lot of attorneys in elder law that I think would do it, you know, with no charge and no pressure. It would just be kind of an educational program. You know, especially for people from out of state that might not be aware. Connie? We do have someone on the board, but I'd almost like to bring in someone from the out of the organization, so there's not a connection at all. That it would be just straight educational program. But good thought. I can ask him for recommendations. I can do that. That would be a real good way to approach it. The other thing that Etta and Janine and I are working on is a community impact initiative, and I'm going to talk about it with the resident council officers when we meet later this week. But you may remember a while back we surveyed residents, what organizations are you involved in the broader community? How are you donating time? Are there initiatives that are very important to you? And we created a list of the different organizations in Lakeland that so many of our residents and so many of our staff are involved in. Well, right now we're working on creating a mailing list to that group. And what we want to do, and it's targeted for September 22nd, where we would have a community impact. We got to come up with a better name, but a community impact fair. And what we want to do is have the resident council committees, and we'll have tables set up, and the committees can be at the tables talking to residents about their work and seeing if residents would like to get involved in some of the committees and our resident council provides, but also to bring in these organizations, and at no charge to anybody, but to bring them in and let them talk to interested residents and staff about their mission, about their organizations, about the things they're doing, because you may find that it's of an interest to you, that you may want to be a volunteer or be engaged in other initiatives involved in our community. We want to open that up to the residents and the staff. It's something that I had seen done in a covenant community that I worked at, and just thought it was a wonderful day where we learned so much about the ministries and programs out in the community. And they were able to build relationships with our residents, donations as well to support some of these ministries. So it was just a really good, effective, mission-oriented approach. And so we're working on that, and appreciate all your work and effort in moving that forward. Thanks, Setta. I'm going to ask Siobhan, our administrator of Porter McGrath, to come up, and Siobhan's going to talk about occupancy in Porter McGrath and some of the initiatives that are underway focused on care.
Good afternoon. Since we have finished now with our survey process for the year, and we are able now to focus on some other things, which is good for us. So we have put together a fall prevention initiative, and it actually comes from Caring Communities ECRI, which is our insurance carrier. So it's an initiative to help prevent falls in the long-term care facility. So we started that probably 3 weeks ago, I believe. And I just went over it with Sunshine, who is our DON, and it seems to be working. We are down in falls for the month of May as compared to April, which is what we want. We know that we can't prevent every fall, but we can look at the falls, we can track and trend the falls and see if there are opportunities for us to make people safer. That's really the initiative. So we are working on that. I am going to start an elopement initiative, which is another toolkit, we call it, from our insurance carrier. And so I will be working on that. I'm starting that probably next week. And we will see how that goes, and if we can prevent and keep people safe and prevent them from wandering or being in an area where they would be unsafe. So that's coming up, and I'll report more on that next month. The other thing is we now have a staff development person. Actually, she's a nurse. She goes by Asia, so you'll hear her name. She is, she has been focused a lot lately on COVID. I mean, COVID has really been her main focus because she's also the infection preventionist for the community. So not just in Porter McGrath, but the whole community. So when we had the outbreak of COVID, she was the one that was leading us in what we should be doing according to the CDC and CMS. So she has been focused on that, but she's also our staff development coordinator, which we have recently increased our staffing and decreased agency. We're not totally out of the woods yet, but we have made strides. So we do have a lot more of our own staff. So because of that, we're doing an initiative where we are training nurses to become sort of supervisors when they're here. So we have a nurse that is works every weekend, and so my director of nursing is working with her to develop her in her supervisory skills, because I don't know if anyone here is a nurse, but I do know that when they go through nursing school, they don't teach nurses how to be leaders. So she is working with this particular nurse to become a supervisor for us. So we will have a supervisor now on weekends. So that will be good. We've also identified some others recently that might be able to handle some extra responsibility, and they're willing to do that. Most people want to grow in their profession, and we want to give them that opportunity. So we will be working with others as the opportunities come up to develop other nurses and CNAs too, because we do have great CNAs. So we can develop them into being mentors to new CNAs, and so they can become leaders in their profession. So we're looking at all of that, and we will continue to push forward on the training. We just recently got training added to our Relias, which is our web-based training that everybody has to go through. That's an employee, and it is training for our system that we use in healthcare, in accounting, in assisted living, to document on resident care and progress. So we did get training added for our nurses, which will be a huge addition. So any new nurse now coming on, or maybe we have a few that we have that are fairly new, will have the opportunity to go through that training. Also, Asia, again, we want to make her what's called a super user. And so she will be attending more training through Matrix, which is our program, so that when there are issues, if people aren't as familiar with the program, that she's the one that we can go to. So we are also in the progress of making her the super user. And also, because we do still have agency, though not as much, but we still do, we have developed an agency training binder. So it has everything in that binder that nurse would most likely need if she was coming in as a new nurse here at PMG. There's a binder now that has everything in there, some policies, procedures, different things on the way to order labs, order medications. All of that is in this binder now. So that will help those agency people when we do need agency. That will help them, if they are new, to know what our processes and procedures are. So we also have that now too. Are there any questions for me? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Today the occupancy is 35. It will help. I would say that it will help. It will help new employees, and it will help with retention. So if we hire employees and we don't give them the proper training, we're likely not going to keep them. So that will definitely help in the retention of the staff. We just need a little bit more staff. So as we grow in our own staff, we will grow the census. But we have to just kind of do that a step at a time. Yeah. Yes.
I understand that years past, the nursing home was overbuilt with extra rooms. Is that correct, Joe? And so there's been an issue of not reflecting on this administration or yours, the struggle of trying to fill those extra spaces, which, is added to the cost.
So this,
So how is that being dealt with?
yeah.
If there's a way to deal with it?
So this,
Let me reiterate, it has no reflection
that's all right.
at all
It's okay.
on you guys.
So let me restate it, Larry, just so anybody on the camera, and then if I state it wrong, correct me. But basically, okay, all right. What Larry has shared was he had heard information that we overbuilt the number of beds in skilled care, and that's part of the occupancy challenge, for the organization. So what I would say to that is we added 20 beds to what was a long-term care facility. So the difference is the 20 beds were geared towards being able to now take the first floor of Porter McGrath and focus on short-term stay, so like rehab care and short-term stay. At the time, we had residents, and I wasn't here, so I'm only sharing what other people have told me. Well, but yeah, and I'm not saying that as a judgment against my predecessor. It's just I'm only getting my information not firsthand, but based on folks who've been here. So there were residents who, when they needed short-term stay rehab, were being placed off campus. We didn't have the facility or the therapy program to take care of them. So the idea was to make sure that we built enough to be able to take care of our own residents. The industry was moving at the time when I first started in this field, like 27 years ago, where everybody was moving to short-term stay. Everybody had nursing homes, but the movement was Medicare pays really well. So there was all of this push to build short-term stay Medicare beds. And that was factual. Every facility was adding beds to do Medicare because the reimbursement was so good. We opened like 5+ years ago the new portion of the building. So we've got 10 additional beds upstairs, so we were able to take all our nursing home long-term care residents upstairs and use the first floor as short-term stay. What's changed in that time frame, and we're talking about from 27 years ago when I started, when everybody was saying build Medicare short-term stay, to 5 years ago, what was shifting was Medicare Advantage plans. And so we just had a meeting with the company that negotiates our Medicare Advantage contracts on our behalf and other providers in our field. And she said in our meeting that Medicare Advantage is now 63% of the market. There wasn't Medicare Advantage, 10 years ago. How that affects us and organizations like us is most Medicare Advantage plans don't pay their providers the cost of providing the care. They also don't communicate to residents that sign up for the Medicare Advantage plans that they don't always have contracts with us as providers. And then the resident gets caught in the middle of that, saying, well, I want to go back there, but if I have to pay out of pocket, I guess I have to go somewhere else. So why that all happened, as I understand it, it was wanting to get that Medicare, wanting to be able to take care of our own residents on our own campus. Now, to me, I love the way you stated, you took it from that question to what's being done. Because we can't just say, well, that was the hand we were dealt, and that's the reality. And I wouldn't want somebody to come behind me someday and just sit up here and go, well, that guy should have done this and should have done that. Because nobody knows unless they're in the person's shoes based on the information they get at that time. And so what we're doing now is we're focusing on, number one, build our clinical team. And that started, with Siobhan. That started with our DON, Sunshine. It started with getting an infection control staff development nurse. It started with our unit manager, Shelley. So now we've got a core clinical team with Dr. Haight and with Cindy Brown that is really strong. And that's where it starts. The next step is getting nurses and CNAs to come and work here. When we made the adjustment to the performance incentive plan for nurses and CNAs, we immediately saw a surge in the number of nurses applying here. And so in nurses in Port McGrath, we've been able to fill most shifts with our own pretty consistently. It really isn't, the only time we're going on agency is in a real emergency, like a nurse calls off, something happened and they can't come in. Before, we had so many open shifts, we were filling it, with agency. And people will say, well, don't fill it with agency. Well, the problem with that is we can't provide care. If we don't have nurses on the floor, whether they're agency or not agency, we can't provide care. So our choice was, do we close wings down of the building and send people, our own residents, to other communities that were also struggling with this problem? So since we did the increase, we've seen a bump. We saw a quick bump in CNAs, but then it died. And so we're sitting here working through, it's the 3 to 11 shift in both AL and in Port McGrath. That shift is where we're struggling, and it's with CNAs. So we're working with HR to look at what can we be doing to get that 3 to 11 shift CNAs to come here. And it's not all about money. It's do they want to be part of something that makes a difference? The money's important, but it's also about being part of an organization that's making a difference. So strategically, Larry, the other thing we're doing is we're working with our therapy department. We've started to promote Part B therapy and really pushing Part B, which is outpatient therapy, which doesn't put a whole lot of pressure on nursing. So we've started promoting the Part B. The other thing that we're doing is we've got we've had discussions with hospice providers to look at the 5 units that are open down here where my office used to be as a possible hospice location that they would lease, as well as looking at Port McGrath and saying which space makes sense for the organizations of hospice to look at leasing space and having hospice provided in these areas that aren't generating revenue. The other thing we're doing, and it's part of the strategic plan, is we have a meeting scheduled with Danielle Drummond from Lakeland Regional, and we're in this is a meeting that everywhere I've been in every organization, I've had this meeting. I've been fortunate enough to work in organizations that had strategic plans, and it got us in the door to have meetings with CEOs of hospitals to talk about what are your pain points as a hospital when it comes to serving older adults, and for us to share what our pain points are. And one of our pain points is staffing. That's probably one of theirs too. And we work together to identify mutually beneficial initiatives that benefit and help us build referrals to fill our beds and to take care of people who need care from the community. So those are the things that we're doing strategically to change the tide in Port McGrath. We saw that when the state came out and did survey and the Fed came out and did survey, we did really well. And considering we had a brand new DON, brand new administrator, all the change, even beyond that, we did really well. And we now have a 5-star rating again by CMS. So we know clinically the team is moving in the right direction and doing the right things. But now we need the strategy behind it to help support occupancy. And that's where we're at. That's what's going on with Porter McGrath. Judy? So question is, what is happening with the memory care unit? So in the strategic plan, it has not in this year, but in next year, we will look at the assisted living and we will look at Porter McGrath for potential memory care in those. And I shouldn't, it almost sounds like we don't do any memory care. What we don't have is a dedicated memory care. Whether it's assisted living or skill level, we don't have a dedicated space where that's the program. So that's coming. That's something that's coming. Yes, good. Yeah, it does take special licensure. Correct. Correct. Yep. We. Start the planning, right. Yeah, looking at it. Yes, ma'am, to start the planning next year in that. In dementia care right now, what our team and Tasha's leadership, we are working with the Alzheimer's Association to look at training initiatives for all staff. We just talked about it this morning. For dementia-specific training for all staff. We get, in Relias, we do a training, but it's a web-based training. To me, it's just not as effective as sitting with people and communicating and learning together. So that's an initiative that's underway, and Tasha talked about some of the other Alzheimer programs that we're moving forward on this year. So I'm going to jump in. I've got like, thank you. Thanks, Siobhan. I've got 3 minutes. I'm sorry. I'm going to move through this fairly quickly. In residential living, we have 2 houses that are available. We have 2 houses that have contract pending on them, which means that people are in the process of signing the contracts and getting us the entrance fees and so on. We will have, I think it's 3 houses that will be vacating soon, and looking at Tally primarily, and so we've got some change there. But right now there's 2 houses that are available, and that means they're ready to show and sell. In independent living, we have 7 apartments available. You'll remember we were talking about this a few months ago. It was like 13, and then we shot down to 9, and it's been hovering at 9 for a long time. Well, the efforts of Cher and Tasha and now Susan and our marketing team, we're seeing movement in the apartments. We did initiate the rental contract in the apartments. So far, people are taking the entrance fee still, so we have not sold a rental contract in independent living. We have 3 apartments that have contract pending. So that's some good movement, you know, from Cher and the team. That's some good movement in the apartments. Any questions on occupancy? Okay. COVID protocols. So what we're seeing and hearing, we work as Siobhan said, Asia is our infection control. She's key in these discussions. We also have Dr. Haight involved in all these considerations, Katie Gannon, who's our nurse, our DON for assisted living, Tasha, Siobhan, our management leadership team, and we meet every Friday. And if we need to meet on alternate days, we do, to look at what's changing. What you're seeing in the media now is what we've been talking about now for months. For a while there, everybody was kind of going, this is over, this is over. You know, we've got enough people that are vaccinated, it's over. But what they're starting to see is an incline in new cases as well as positivity rate. The good news is, and we're tracking it, in the county, and looking at this every week, is that hospitalizations are up slightly for the first time in probably 4 months, but they're slight. It's slight. It's not, we're not seeing that big surge. So we're continuing to monitor and track the information. Obviously, it's a blessing that the majority, almost all of our residents have been vaccinated and received at least one full dose of vaccine. In our employees, we have 6 employees that have a religious or medical accommodation, but they're taking extra precautions that are required in order to protect our residents. So the CDC, every time there's one positive case, they treat it as a full outbreak. So that's why we're following the guidelines of CDC and CMS. And sometimes you may say, well, my gosh, why are they doing this testing every Wednesday for gosh? Well, because we're required to, as it's set by the CDC standard. And you as independent living and residential living, we ask you to, we don't force you to. So we ask you to do the testing. But the thing that we really stress is wear your masks, when you're inside. You're starting to see it now in the media, where you're starting to see some states and some towns going back to requiring wearing a mask indoors. So that's something with our population that we serve. We said from very early on how important that was, and we've maintained that it's still very important. So any questions on COVID protocols? I don't foresee any major changes right now, just based on the data. There's nothing that suggests right now we have to be stricter or more stringent in any way. But we also, as you hear, we're opening up transportation. We're looking at different things to try to get us back to a better place. So with that, it's 2:20. The program starts at 2:30 for Kim. I will be happy to answer 1 or 2 questions that anybody has. I will let you know, Dick, I'll be right there. One of the things that I talked about was doing a special meeting to focus on master site plan and strategic plan. We did that last month. For those of you who attended, we'll do it again in June on a different updated information on strategic plan and on master site plan. Dick? Cleaning service for residential living. So right now, our focus is on independent living and on assisted living and skilled care. The reason for that is we are contractually obliged to provide cleaning for those areas. So at this point, that's with our staffing, that's where we're at. You may have heard that Maylee resigned. So that was something that we learned about last week. We received her resignation. So at that point, we posted for that position of the housekeeping supervisor. Rick had started posting immediately, and we've interviewed 2 candidates. The housekeeping staff interviewed one of the candidates today, and Rick handed me a notice saying that they want to hire this one and that they feel really good. So I'm hoping that we could have that position filled. The other thing that we're doing is I've reached out to Sodexo, which is a company that does management of those services, but they also have staff, and I've asked them, can we subcontract with your staff to do cleaning, with a focus, again, primarily on independent living, because that's where the contractual obligation is. And so I'm waiting they're going to get back to me on Friday. We reached out to E&A Cleaning, which is a local company that I understand the school districts have worked with quite a bit when they're short, and I haven't gotten a response yet from E&A Cleaning. There's going to be a cost to that, so we have to figure out, how do we manage that, but the hope is we'll be able to fill positions behind it. The other thing we're looking at, and I've had many, many nights and discussions about how do we pay employees more. So a year ago, we had a performance incentive plan that was put in place for all hourly employees, just hourly employees. And if a person just simply signed in when they're supposed to sign in and worked their full shift for a week of 40 hours, if they did that, they would get a bonus. And their bonus would be more based on the number of years they have been with the organization. That helped, but it's still not getting us to where we need to be. The state had set a law in place 2.5 years ago, that we have to be to $15 as a minimum by January of 2026. Our strategic plan laid out that we would do $1 a year. We're already past that. We're already at $12. So but we're seeing it's still a real challenge, especially in housekeeping, maintenance, transportation, groundskeeping, and dining aids. Those are the ones that were really struggling. So we applied, or we're working with the company to apply for a federal employee retention credit. And this came up in March, and we were told at the time that we would not be eligible. The companies that told us that said that the rules changed and that they believed we would be eligible. So we contracted with a company to file an application for the employee retention credit. We don't know if we'll get it. We don't know how much we'll get. But the idea is we want to take the money and use it today as a bridge in the performance incentive plan to increase the performance incentive plan more. So people with long-term tenure, again, will get more than somebody who just started, but bump it again with that fund. So people will say, well, why don't you just increase their wages? Just flat out increase the wages. So I've heard things like, we'll take money out of the strategic master site plan and use that money over there and just use that. The problem with that is, with this credit, and if we take money out of capital and put it into labor, labor is an operating budget item. Once you raise that wage, you have to fund that every year. The credit, if the credit goes away next year, we have to figure out what replaces it. Because you can't then go back and say, okay, now that you were making this much, we don't have the money, we're going to cut you. That ain't going to work, I mean, for obvious reasons. So we're hoping that with this credit, we'll be able to create a bridge, and it'll be strong enough where we can get some of these strategic initiatives underway to generate revenue. And then it is looking and talking with the residents in the fee increase. I mean, that I'm not playing, I'm not sitting here saying, well, don't worry, don't worry. The reality is we can't pay a competitive rate to the staff. If we can't pay a competitive rate, we're going to have problem with turnover, with retention, with their satisfaction, and with your satisfaction. So the hope is, what do we need to do to minimize that amount to the lowest number we can get it to? And that right now, I can't tell you what that is because we're still figuring it out. Because I don't have a credit, I don't know what we're looking at. But the focus is trying to get to that 15 sooner than 2026. And it's just, how do you go about doing it? And how do we minimize the exposure to residents to the best of our ability? And this isn't something that is unique to us. Every community that I talk to, they're all experiencing this. It's a challenge. Larry?
If the average increase of the monthly fee is around 5%, at least our experience, how many of us would be willing to raise it 1% more to help mitigate that increase?
See, that's where you'll get.
Be a positive response. I know it's a
Yeah.
sticky wicket.
Well, you'll get mixed, right? You'll get mixed, no matter what. If it was 2%, it would be, for some, 2% would be a lot. If it was 6%, it would be a lot to some, and others wouldn't. It's just right now, we need to know what we can get from the credit and see, is this something that the credit can fund over more than a year, and that gives us 2 years to build behind it, to fund it? instead of 1 year? I don't know until I get the amount. And if it carried for 2, it would help us split the expense instead of taking a hit all at once. Jim?
What's going on with the handbook?
Oh, good question. What's going on with the resident handbook? Janine, what was the today you told me? When's it get? So the printer's working on them, Jim. We should have them by the end of next week, and then we'll hand deliver them to you guys. We were talking about, I'm sorry, Ray. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ray. No. So the last year was the employee scholarship. The year before was the memorial garden. So timing-wise, so one of the things that came out of our strategic plan philanthropy group was to put together a committee of board members, residents, people from the outside community to work with me in looking at philanthropy on the campus. And so that I'm waiting, I need to get that going. That's something that I haven't prioritized, and I need to prioritize it and get that going. We have met with GiveWell and Lori Martini, and one of the things we had talked about in that committee was having GiveWell come out and do a program for interested residents and people who want to learn more about GiveWell. So that is underway. We're moving forward with that. But yeah, that's on me. But yeah, there would be something towards year end that we would have an appeal. So it's 2:26. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to close so we can head over and recognize Kim. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you.